Good morning. This is pre-algebra for Monday, and I believe it's April the 20th. So we're gonna look at a couple of things today. I'm gonna teach you a new concept, but I want to work through some problems from our lesson on Friday. So if you're following along, go ahead and turn in your book to page 237, problem set 84. Now, I have drawn the figure for number 13 on the board. Our directions tell us find the volume in cubic feet of the right solid whose base is shown on the left and whose sides are 4 feet high. The dimensions are in feet. Now, how do you find volume? Volume, no matter what our shape, we find it the same way. We always find it by saying what? We say area of the figure times the height. Well, if we're gonna say area, total area, times height to find our volume, we have to figure out how do I find total area? So when I look at this, I have to say, what are my shapes in here? Well, I have a semicircle, so I'm gonna put the area of the semicircle. To that, I'm gonna add the area of the shape here in the middle, which is gonna be a rectangle. Then, over here, to make this a rectangle, I'm going to have to draw a line right there to give me a triangle. I'm going to add the area of these three shapes together, okay? And I know we've gone over this a lot, but I have a few that are still struggling, so I really want to go over this together. Besides, we did this together. It makes your homework easier, right? We're going to multiply that times the height. So, look at your semicircle. How do you find the area of a semicircle? You say pi times radius square divided by 2. So our first step is going to be to break each of these down. Write the formulas. Pi times radius square divided by 2. How do I find the area of a rectangle? I say length times width. Then how do I find the area of a triangle? I say base times height divided by 2. I'm going to take all of that. Those three things, when added together, give me my total area. Now, take the total area and multiply it by the height. Okay? All I've done so far is remind myself that volume is total area times height. Then I said, okay, what shapes do I have in my total area? Well, I have a semicircle, a rectangle, and a triangle. Then I said, how do I find the area of each of those? So, Mrs. Turner, why am I writing this out? Because you are learning to think things through very logically. It's going to help you, especially when you get into geometry, okay? Because you're going to have already learned how to think things through step by step, not make assumptions, because you have to prove things in geometry, okay? Now, let's look at this. The volume is pi, which is 3.14, times the radius square of our semicircle. Well, our radius is 1, so it's going to be 1 squared divided by 2. Then we have our rectangle here in the center. We know that this line is 2, and the bottom, we have to think that through. We have to look at it, okay? If the bottom of our rectangle is going to come right here as well, right? Because it's going to have parallel lines. Since the tops are parallel and the sides are parallel, they're going to be the same. So it is also 2. Whoops, that looks like more like a Z. Okay? Then we have base times height. Well, if this is 2, but the whole line is 3, this base has to be 1. Okay? So the base is 1. We're going to multiply that by the height. Well, what is the height? The height of the triangle is the same as the height or the length of the rectangle. So it is going to be as well times 2. Divide that by 2. All of these have to be solved, added together before we do our height. Now, our height is not on our diagram. You have to go back to your book. It says the sides are 4 feet high. So this is going to be 4 feet. Okay? Now, let's go back and solve this. We have 3.14 times 1 squared. 1 squared is 1 times 1, so that is what? 3.14. And we're going to divide it by 2. So really, we're saying 3.14 divided by 2. So we go here 1, and then we have 1 left over, so we're going to put a point there. We have 5, 1.57 plus 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 times 2 is 2 times divided by 2. We have 1. And again, this is area, so this is all going to be our what? Square feet. We're going to bring this down, and we're going to say 1.57 plus 4 plus 1. So we're going to have 6.57 times 4 feet. Okay? Now, when we're simply going to multiply that, we're going to say 4 times 6.57. We're going to get 26.28. 26.28. We know that this inside our brackets was our area, so that is square feet. We're multiplying that by the height, which is just feet. So square feet times feet gives us cubic feet. So the final answer was 26.28 cubic feet. Okay? If you have a question about how to do that, please make sure you drop me a comment on the video. I check those comments all day long so that I can get back to you. Now, let's look at the next one. This is number 14 in your book. It says, find the volume and the surface area of the right circular cylinder. It's shown. The dimensions are in meters, okay? So, if we're going to do, let's do the volume first, okay? So if we're going to look at volume, how do you find volume? Remember, volume is always the area of the total area times the height. So we're going to say volume equals the area of the base times the height. Now, my question is, how do I find the area of the base? Well, that is going to be pi times radius squared. Then we're going to multiply it by the height. Okay? So when you look at that, let me look at my book. So we have a diameter, or I'm sorry, we have a radius of 2. So we're going to say the volume is 3.14 times radius squared. That's 2 squared times the height of 1. So we have 3.14 times 2 squared is 4 times the height of 1. So now we're going to say 3.14, which is pi, times 4, okay? We're going to multiply that by 4, or 4 pi is what it was, okay? And we're going to get 12. The volume is going to be 12.56. Again, it's area. This one is in centimeters, so it is square centimeters, okay? When we multiplied it by 1, it didn't change our answer. So 12.56 square centimeters is the answer. Now, it also says to find the surface area of this cylinder, okay? So, in order to find the surface area, I'll write that over here. The surface area, let me grab my cylinder, okay? I know this is not the same height, but that's okay. And if I was going to cover this, I would need to find the area of the top and the area of the bottom. Now, those two areas are going to be exactly the same, okay? Because in essence, I have a tube, okay? So what I'm going to say is 2 times the area of the base, okay? Because the top and the bottom are the same size, okay? So then I have to do what's in the middle. What is that? We find that by saying what's the area of the rectangle. If you remember when I taught this, if I take a piece of paper and I wrap it around that, okay? If I were to cut the side of that so that I could lay it flat, it would be the shape of a rectangle. So that's why we use that formula, okay? Now, with that being said, let's figure these out, okay? So we have surface area equals 2 times the area of the base. So we're gonna, okay? Our radius is 2, okay? So when we find the area of the base, it's pi times radius squared. So we're gonna say 2 times pi times radius squared plus the area of the rectangle, which is going to be what? We're going to say pi times length times width. See, Mrs. Turner, why did you throw that pi in there? Because it is a circular shape, okay? Anytime we're using a circular shape, we're going to use pi, okay? Now, let's go ahead and calculate this out. We've got surface area equals 2. Well, we know pi is 3.1. Form up a parentheses so my numbers don't get all skewed together. Our radius is 2, so that is 2 squared plus pi times the length and width of the rectangle. Well, how am I going to know that? All right, the length of that is going to be the diameter of the top, which is going to be 4, and the height of it is going to, or the length of that is going to be my width there, okay? So that's how we're going to solve it. Now we're going to say 2 squared is 4, okay? So we can say 4 times 2, that gives us 8 times pi for our surface area, because that's the 3.14, plus, I'm going to leave this as pi today, okay? Then I have 4 times 1 is 4 times pi. So really what I end up with down here is 8 pi plus 4 pi, which equals 12 pi. Now what am I going to do? Now I'm going to multiply 12 times 3.14. So Ms. Turner, why didn't you do it up here? Well, if I did it up here, I wasn't wrong. It just gives me a lot of decimals to work with. So if I just leave it as pi, calculate all the numbers around it, then I come up with 8 pi. Now I can combine them and do the decimals only one time, trying to help me make sure I don't make as many mistakes. Okay, when we do this, when we multiply 12 times 3.14, we're going to get 37.68. Now, it's surface area. So what kind of unit am I going to have? It's in centimeters, so my answer is going to be square centimeters, okay? Now, let's move on from that and let's go ahead and look at some other things that we had going on as far as review. Okay, I'm going to erase all this out of our way. All right, now, I want to look first way over here at the other side of the board. This is what we're talking about today. We're talking about opposites, okay? And I'm sure when you were in first or second grade, you probably played opposite games with your teacher as she helped you learn about what things are opposite. If I said in, you would say out. If I said on, you'd say off. If I say up, you say down, okay? Numbers have opposites too. The opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. The opposite of negative 2 is a positive 2. They are opposite to each other. Now, instead of using the word negative every time you see a sign, if you simply say the opposite of, that sometimes makes it a little easier for us to follow. Let me show you. 2, and I would read this as the opposite of 2, which is negative 2. This one is the opposite of the opposite of negative 2. If it's the opposite of the opposite of 2, that's going to be a positive 2, okay? So this equals 2, and this is going to be a negative 2. This is going to be a positive 2. Now we have the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of 2, okay? And that's going to be a negative 2. Now you say, Mrs. Turner, all those opposites get confusing. Well, I'm going to show you an easy way to do it though, all right? Really, all you're saying to yourself is, what's my number? Well, let's do this one. The number is 2 that I'm talking about. I have 2 signs. If there are 2 opposite signs, the answer is even. okay? It's an even number, so my answer is positive, always. If I have a 2, 4, 6, 8, 32, 168, it doesn't matter. If it's an even number of signs, of what we would call negative signs or opposite signs, the answer is positive. If it's an odd number, okay, if it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, if it's 1061, okay, if it's an odd number, your answer is even, okay? So look at this. I have the number 2, and I have 1, 2, 3 signs. So my answer is negative. Look at this one. I have 7, the opposite of, the opposite of, the opposite of, the opposite of, and the opposite of, okay? Again, I'm only going to write the 7 down, and I'm going to count my signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 opposite signs. This is negative 7. All right, look at this one. This one's a multiplication. I'm going to totally ignore my signs. Only look at your numbers. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 5 is 40. Now the question is that a positive or a negative? Count your signs. 1, 2, 3. 3 is an odd number, so my answer is negative. Let's try this. I have a 3, so we know it's going to be 3, but we have 1, 2, 3 opposite signs, so my answer is, it's an odd number, so my answer is negative 3. Look at this one. It is a 2. This is a lot of signs, but again, it's no big deal. Okay, we're just going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 opposite signs or 4 negative signs, so that makes this a positive 2 because 4 is an even number. Look at this last one. We have the number 5. Count your signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is an odd number, therefore it is at negative 5. That's all there is to today's lesson. Now I want you to look in your book. Look at page 240. Look at page 240. Look at the practice.